guys, I'm Jason, this is Nathan, we're from Live Beast, and we're here talking about part 4 from our Olympic lift and powerlifting programming regime. So we've already gone through how to do the lifts, why we do them and why they're so great. So now we're going to tell you about how to put it into your program and what's the best way to do that. So Nate's going to take us off with the strength component.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about 3 major categories that everyone should have been aware of. So we have strength, hypertrophy, and then conditioning. So let's talk about strength. This is really what we talk about with our core power lifts. So if we look at the 4 major sort of characteristics of everything, we look at our sets, our reps, our rest between sets, and then our rest between separate exercises. So with strength training, you're really trying to move maximum weight. You're really trying to create that strength within the muscle and develop that extra strength. So it's all about progressive overloading the bar. So when we're doing this, we're probably talking 3 to 5 sets. These are going to be very heavy work. So you really need to be careful with it. Obviously with all of this, me and Jason always agree, technique is the #1 thing here. You shouldn't be going for ego lifts unless you actually can lift it or you're supported for it. So 3 to 5 sets. Rep ranges usually never more than 6 depending on what you're doing. So for deadlifting you may do 3, 5, you may do a 1 rep max. Probably wouldn't go much further than that, but something like a high pull or something else like that, you'd probably go up to the 6 sort of range there. Again, it's minimal reps for maximum weight. Between the sets, you want to take basically as much time as your body needs to recover, because you don't want to have any pre-exhaustion for your next set. So anywhere from about 90 seconds to 5 minutes is really how you can sort of go. You just gauge by your body. You shouldn't be trying to exhaust yourself between the sets, because you're not going to move that maximum weight, you're not going to get what you're looking for.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day as well, this is what we call textbook. What people would say you can do, and then there's what real life is going to come into, what you feel you can do and what you know you can do.
Exactly. And you will, I mean, you are going to get some level of exhaustion regardless. You're lifting big weights here. There's a lot of input to the body, but you want to give yourself the best chance to keep lifting that heavier weight. And then between exercises is basically the same as between the reps. If you're going to be doing multiple strength exercises, you will need that recovery time in between each exercise. So the idea is not to pre-exhaust yourself or get yourself so worn out that it affects your next lift, basically. So Jason, why don't you kick us off with hypertrophy?
So, like Nathan was saying, that's about overloading the bar. Now we're about overloading our bodies. We're actually trying to innovate those muscles to rip and grow. And so we're not going to concern about how much weight we're lifting, but how much work can we do. So we're looking at rep ranges of, set ranges of 3 to 10. You know, the lower the sets, maybe the higher rep range you might use, or German volume training where you're on the other end of the scale where you're doing 10 sets. You can still do a moderate amount of reps, about 10, you're doing a lot of work. Rest time, again, textbook says 30 to 90 seconds, but we want to, again, like we're concerned about the work rate, we don't want to rest too long that you're not struggling to get that lift out. And when I say struggling, I don't mean to the point where you're failing and you're going to hurt yourself, but it's that point where you know that, hey, I know I've done a lot of work, I know my muscles are tired, and I am getting that rip. And again, same between exercises, you want to rest enough so that you can do the work, but not so little that it gets too easy. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to get the adaptation here. If we don't challenge ourselves, we're not going to adapt to it, and then we're not going to get any of that growth, and especially if that's what you're going for.
And the thing about this as well is muscle growth is all about that time under tension you'll hear people talk about. That's why we're not looking at moving the heaviest weight we can. We're really looking for weights that we can struggle through. Like, it should still be a struggle. You should be burning at the end of that, but you still struggle through that 8 to 15 reps. So those last ones are really exhausting, but you're not pausing through it. You're really getting a bit of tension on that muscle, really getting that blood flowing there, getting it all sort of pumped up for you. So it's a really good way, and these are the ones that often, if you're training purely for hypertrophy, you're doing probably these big compound lifts that we've talked about, your deadlifts, your squats and all this sort of stuff. And these are the ones where you post-training, you start to do some of the isolation work and stuff like that, where you're really sort of trying to develop that figure. So conditioning, and this is probably the most open one. This is what we talk about, our functional style workouts. CrossFit's very sort of like this sort of style of setup.
You might hear people mention metabolic conditioning, different ways of training your internal pathways to deal with high loads of work. So, and like we said, as you can see, there's a lot of kind of open space here where we haven't really given any set numbers, like how many sets can you do? I mean, that's open-ended. It's up to you what you're trying to achieve.
You could be trying one set of 50 reps or something, or one set of 100 reps on something like that. And then at the other time, you could be doing 10 sets of 10. I mean, to be honest, German volume training probably comes to a point under this conditioning as well, especially if you went a lighter rep. This is probably a lot more about speed, though, as well.
It is, yeah.
This is hard busting ass sort of work. You're really going for it, and that's why you're really setting the sets as you want. You're sort of like, I'm going to do, 10 sets over 10 minutes, or I'm going to do this one big set, and I'm going to not re-rack the weight until that ends.
And then your repetitions are nice and high.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are going for speed, you're almost hitting the kind of more endurance as well.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything that really keeps you going. So with that, with high repetitions and potentially an unknown number of sets, why we want to keep rest so minimal again is because if you're taking that rest, you're not really challenging those inner pathways that we're trying to focus on, that endurance, your cardio, your anaerobic thresholds, stuff like that.
The big thing to remember with this is basically you're resting so that you can maintain quality technique.
Yeah.
So although we're pushing and pushing and pushing, we're never sacrificing technique and potentially doing injury. And
we're
that's
not going for gold, are we?
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
Going to the Olympics, we're not trying to compete to be the best at lifting. We're trying to achieve a certain goal, whether it be a sports performance or whether it to be just become a fitter, healthier human being.
Exactly. So that's why you're pushing yourself as hard as you can, but as safely as you can as well. And that's why some of these lifts, sometimes I often wouldn't reckon the deadlift especially is probably not the ideal lift in conditioning unless you are one of those elite level athletes, because that fatigability regardless can cause issues. But it is up to you on that one as well.
Now, we also have had questions about whether we should do them in the same day, whether it's possible to. Nathan and I believe that you can. Yeah. There's no reason why you shouldn't, but there is a way that we would do it, and we would always start with our strength and maybe work our way down.
Yeah. Like you definitely want, in my opinion, always want to go strength first, because you want to be as fresh as possible to attack those big lifts. If you're going to already burn yourself through conditioning or hypertrophy and then try and do strength, you're going to be already limited to the level of weight you can lift. And potentially you're also going to be exhausted to the point where your technique won't be appropriate enough to lift those heavy weights without possibly putting yourself at risk. So I often recommend, and people that I train or train with, we usually start with a couple of big strength exercises to get the body going, get that real change within the muscle, and then do some of this work on top of that to really get that burnout on top of that. Again, it's accessible by your goals. If you're trying to do a lot of strength work, if you're going to compete in powerlifting and stuff like that, you probably actually don't want to train that kind of stuff on the same day because your goals don't align with that. But if you're a general trainer and you would like to get stronger, but also some sort of metabolic conditioning and some changes to the physique you have, then you probably do want that combination of stuff there. And again, it's all about experimentation, what works for you. There's many programs out there. A lot of you probably heard of 5x5s or 5-3-1s, and we talk about German volume training and
diminished rest intervals, drop setting, anything like that.
Supersets, all that sort of stuff. They're all options, and they're all stuff we'll probably talk about in future as well. So here's just some base ideas for us, guys. Do let us know what you train. Tell us underneath what kind of work you like to do, how you like to incorporate this. As always, make sure you put extra ideas in for us and subscribe to this channel. And check us out on the Facebook. Anything else from you, Jas, before we finish up this one?
That's pretty much it. I mean, we started off with this as an Ollie lift, power lift thing, but there's no reason why you can't take this style of programming to everything with your own exercise program.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you again, guys. It's been Jason and Nathan for Life Beast. See ya.